Welcome to the Trucker Therapy Podcast. This is Buck Black. On today's interview, a guy who is described as John Wayne driving a truck, Canadian Alex Debogorski is a star in the History Channel's Emmy-nominated Ice Road Truckers. While it was luck that presented this job to him when he was a young man in need of making more money, Alex is so much more than just an ice road trucker. He is a philosopher, a teacher, and really someone to look up to. I hope you find this mental health slant on trucking in the North to be helpful. Now, here's the interview. Alex Debogorski, thanks so much for taking the time to do the interview. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Well,
cold, I guess rather cold. It's 32 below Celsius here.
Oh, yes.
It might even be colder than that, but it's definitely, I haven't left the house yet this morning. I'm afraid to do so. I might freeze my feet.
I'm glad you're inside where it's nice and warm talking with me for a little bit.
Yeah, I got an excuse to stay in the house.
There you go. Excellent. So I want to ask you questions today just related to how do you deal with the stress, loneliness, and any of the relationship problems that might arise while you're out on the ice road. Since I'm a therapist specializing in working with truck drivers, I really want to ask you those kinds of questions and get a really good idea of your sense there. So maybe I could start with the first question by asking you, what is the isolation like when you're on the ice road?
Well, generally driving truck is an isolated type of job. I think some people, it's interesting, I met an ex-serviceman in Albuquerque, and he had retired from the U.S. military, and and this is only in the last few years, he'd been there since Vietnam, so he had 30 years or something in. And over all the years, he'd become an engineer, and when he got out of the military, he went to work for an engineering firm. Of course, he was getting up in age, and he says, they're all young kids at the engineering firm, and they didn't treat him worth a darn. And after a year or two of the engineering firm, he couldn't take, being pushed around and considered to be stupid because he was old, and he thought, what kind of job could I do that just get away from people? Because people really drive me nuts. He became a truck driver. And he said, I love it. So it's
excellent.
So I spend most of the year doing many other things, and I drive truck for 2 months on the winter roads, which makes it interesting. Like for me, it is a way of getting away from it all. So no cell, because we go north and there's no cell phone. We're in the woods most of the time, so we got no cell phone coverage. You don't get no phone calls. I have 11 children. Of course, now they're getting older, and the questions would be answered differently depending on how old I was. I'm 60. I just turned 60 now. When I was 30 and 40, I had a lot tougher time being away from home for long periods of time, but now it's a lot easier. And that 2 months on the winter road gives me a real break, it seems like, from the hustle and bustle of life. I just have to make sure the load's on properly, and I follow all the rules, and stay rested, stay properly nourished, like eat properly, because certain foods throw you off when you're going long ways and long hours, and just go up and down, the roads for 2 months. So that's in a way, the isolation's a relief. To boot, now that they have Sirius Radio, the last few years, I plug in the Sirius Radio, and I don't use it unless I'm driving. I don't use it at home, so I catch up on all, especially because it's mainly American. I catch up on all the American politics and all the goings on in the world and all the current jokes and whatever else there is.
Yeah,
I guess
definitely a question.
And then I guess the other thing is we tend, like this year, the company that I was with before Ice Road Truckers started, which I may go back to, is going to have 182 trucks. So I expect between all the trucking companies, there's probably going to be 400 trucks going up and down that winter road north of Yellowknife to the mines. So there's a fair bit of traffic, of course, at 25 and 30, 5 kilometers an hour, whatever. That's 16, 20 miles an hour, which is sort of an added stress, I guess, to most people, because driving those speeds, you're not moving. That adds to the monotony and the boredom. But there's always somebody out there to entertain or irritate. So if it gets too monotonous, you can always twist somebody up and get a reaction.
Sure,
Otherwise, you get to spend a lot of time by yourself. So I think I'm one of the funniest guys I know. So you can laugh. I can laugh at my own jokes and fantasize and make up stories and go over my past life and imagine the future. Of course,
absolutely.
Of course, on the other side of it, you're driving through the country, so you look, observe, whether it's, the weather, the sky, the terrain, animals, other vehicles, and so there's actually quite a few things out there to entertain one, depending how perceptive a person is. And in our case, the ice road drivers, we tend to drive in parts of the world that very few people see. Considering that the world has 7 billion people in it, that maybe, I don't know, you'd probably say less than 1 million, maybe, 10,000, 100,000. How many people get to see these isolated places, where the water, and the ground turns to, ice, and you drive on the rivers and the lakes. There's not very many people see them, except maybe by paying quite $1 to go hunting or fishing in some of these remote areas. So we get to drive in areas that most people never see, and then to boot, we drive in the wintertime when most hunters and fishermen don't get to see it either. So it's even rarer for people to see it in the winter than in the summer. So we're exposed.
It sounds amazing.
We get exposed to, elements and scenery and things, situations that very few people on the planet get exposed to. So a lot of time, because of the boredom and all the time we spend, a lot of time we don't realize that. But, everybody realizes it too, in a small extent. Especially people that like doing the job. I mean, we have guys that come up and they make one trip and they leave, because I guess the Ice Road Truckers show, some people come up because they'd like to do it and they'll make a trip and say, well, I've done it, I've been an Ice Road Trucker. Some people will make it halfway up the road, maybe 7-8 hours to Lockhart. There might have been a few that didn't even get that far, and they basically fly out because they can't quite stomach the idea that they're driving on water. That's fairly rare.
Mm-hmm.
Then,
Sure.
I've got a friend with 20 trucks, and he says, he had a guy come from Eastern Canada, and he drove the whole season. He did a fantastic job. He looked after the truck. He said, made him money, and he said, when he was finished, he said, thank you very much. I paid him, and he said, I'll never be back. It's been an experience, but it's all I could take is one season. Barely made it through.
Wow.
So we have, there's some different, maybe some different challenges on the winter road. I think the biggest one, I realized it here. I was at the SEMA show in Las Vegas, within the last month, and of course it was fairly nice and warm there compared to here. And I came back, and it was sort of the beginning of winter, and I came back to Yellowknife the next day, drove down the street in my Super Duty, and the wind was blowing, and the snow was kind of the sky is gray, and it's getting cold. It wasn't that cold, but it was it's below freezing. But it looked very wintry, and the snow was swirling around, and I was driving through it, and I thought, I miss this. And I miss the element of man and machine, against the elements. Sort of, if everything is working good, that you're out there, and it is howling, and it's 40 below, and I've got my sleeping bag over my legs, because even with a new door seal in the truck, the wind is coming through the side of the truck, and it's making my leg and my foot cold. And you look out the windshield and you think, is that ever very unfriendly out there? And I'm in there, the heater's working, the truck's running good, and the load's good, and we're going down the road, and It's and even when things go wrong and you get broke, you pull people out of a ditch and you're broke down, and a couple guys get together, or sometime nobody, and you fix it, and you get back in the machine. Your fingers are just killing you because they're frozen, and they've got very cold, and the frost's coming out, and everything works, and you figure, met that challenge. So there is that man and machine against the elements that you just about always notice in the wintertime, especially when things get going tough. So there's that thrill of that, that you feel like, I can just about, you kind of got to have the feeling I can take anything on. Sometime it gets a little too much, you figure you're about ready to give up, but generally everything working good, and it's not a bad job.
Alex, can I ask, does the cold, does the lack of sunlight, does that cause very much depression or winter blues for drivers on the ice road?
Well, I've had, for a healthy guy, I've had plenty of health problems. Seems like I had open heart surgery in 2000 for a mitral valve repair. As a matter of fact, I've got a valve seat that's made in Texas. I got to carry a card in my wallet in my heart. And when I crossed the border, I asked them whether they'd give me an American work visa, considering I was partly made in the USA, and they said no, I had to be at least 50% made in the USA. I didn't have enough American parts in me.
Well, you were trying.
I figured I'd give it a try. And they discovered I was hypothyroid. I've worked a lot of hours. I worked 3-4 jobs at one time when I was in my early 20s, and so it's hypothyroid. And when you're hypothyroid, I don't know, because this is it's normal to me, but they say that you feel colder, and of course the thyroid affects all the adrenal glands, thyroid gland affects all of your body and mind and stuff. So I tend to suffer from a little bit of depression once in a while. And, of course, the lack of sunlight. I don't know, what's the name of that syndrome that when you don't have enough sunlight and you're supposed to sit under like a chicken under a heat lamp for a bright light for half an hour every day. SAD, I think it's called SAD, isn't it? SADD or something?
Yes.
A syndrome?
It stands for seasonal affective disorder, and they abbreviate
exactly,
SAD.
yeah. And I think that affects quite a few people, especially up in the north. At every place where you get less sunlight, but especially in the north. We got places in the north that get zero sunlight for a couple of months, So, I do find myself get a little bit down after a while when if it's just been gray. We do get some winters where it's gray for 2 months or for 6 weeks, and it just seems like the sun never comes out. And of course, it's a little bit harder to see too, with whiteouts and winds and things, and everything is gray because the horizon blends into the snow. Like the ground and the sky on some days are all the same color, and you have a hard time telling the difference, between the road and the sky and the ground and the surrounding area. Well, that's what's called a whiteout. And a whiteout doesn't necessarily need blowing snow to make it that way. That there's no hardly anything to give you depth perception. So so there is elements of depression, and then we end up with other things because we're, these jobs tend to be like the whole ice road trucker show, and I mean there's lots of other guys that do the same thing. The guys come from Eastern Canada or areas where there isn't a lot of work, and they'll come up and they'll drive for 2 months, 3 months straight and not see their families. They're just with the guys and living in camps or living in the truck. And, there's always situations at home and you can't be there. I mean, I've been in situations where, young guy is here, he's married, and he's been up here for 3 weeks, and his wife phones him and tells him that she's leaving him. And he's not in a financial position to go home, and here he is stuck, and has to deal with it. And then you end up with an overflow of, he will affect other people, and then next thing maybe, his suffering, he will make other people suffer. Next thing there might be some fighting going on, and there might be some stuff going on the radio, and so then we have this ripple effect of negative emotion that can affect a lot more people than just the person himself. So that happens sometime. And of course, as we get later in the season, after 2 months of pushing it and, working as many hours as you can legally, things start to fray, in the office, the dispatchers, some things aren't going wrong, tired, cold, maybe there's problems with load, safety bonuses get docked because you cut a tire on a rock that shouldn't have been there. There's all sorts of things that happen between the company and the drivers and the various companies and drivers, and it tends to cause emotional stress on a person as a driver. It'll be a little tougher for me this year because, I had a good friend of mine that I would usually travel with, maybe a third of the season. I'd spend the whole time trying to irritate him, and we buried him on his 62nd birthday, so he's not around anymore. So I kind of, whenever I think of going up here in the winter road, I'm thinking, gee, I don't know what to do without roaming around, because there's always I always found it entertaining and found support in traveling with him. We have a lot of hobbies and do things, a lot of things the same, and have the same outlook, and we've known each other for 35 years. So now that he's not there, then you're sort of out. I guess that's a form of support that we as drivers, we'll have, some of us have only a few friends and some of us have more, and we find support in humor and knowing each other. And if we have problems with other people, it's always nice to have somebody stand up for you. So I'll have one less person in that department.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I've been reading your book, King of the Road, and I'm most of the way through it. And the last part that I read here recently was talking about how the drivers talk so much on the radio, and about the antics that you play, about talking about the aliens coming down and probing truck drivers, and the alien drives the truck. So I'm curious, just what's the community like as far as the ice road community? As far as, do you guys talk a good bit? Is it a close-knit community, or do people keep to themselves more so?
Well, I guess there's a core group that has done it for a long time, that sort of recognize the experience in each other and have a certain amount of respect for each other. Or, there's some of these people been a long time and they have a long time dislike for each other, maybe grudging respect. And then there's always new people coming and going. I think it's a driving community as a whole. We have a whole mix of different characters in there, and there's some characters, there's guys that just want to take over the job, that there's guys that'll get on the radio and they'll start, telling you the rules, and, sometimes changing the rules. Like they, all of a sudden they're the rule maker and say, well, this is a new rule, and they'll make things up, and, sometimes, almost make themselves believe it. So you've got to be careful. And then there's the storytellers that, I tend to do that sometime, that I get bored, and the whole thing with the aliens, I didn't realize it, but you end up, some guys get quite spooked, and so I go out of my way to spook them a little more, and they'll call you bullshit on the radio, so you're so full of crap. Well, then now I got to come on there with a good answer where I can make them question their own logic, and persuade them that there's actually aliens out there, and so it all can be quite entertaining. I don't know if in my book I told this story of some guys have some, there's always people making up stories. And one of the goals is to, make up a story when you leave and see if you'll meet the story coming back. Because you try to start a story that turns into a rumor, and people start persuading each other that this rumor is true. And sometime it works. Now, I don't know if in my book, this is an example, but this is not on the ice road. That happened to be right here in town. And I don't know if it's in my book. There's a mechanic by the name of Peter Basco. And he came, and he'd rented my shop from me, and I was, I know him, and I know him well, and I wish him well, and I talk to him, and different things, but he kind of peeved me off. I didn't really address it with him. And anyway, one day he comes to me, and he's, he has some problems. He has some problems, depression and, financial problems, and sometimes, brought on like we all are. We are all our own worst enemy most of the time. And he came to my shop one day, and I was busy, and he said somebody broke into his shop and stole $40,000 of his tools, and I hear of somebody, and then he started nattering on, and he was kind of upset about it. But I was kind of busy, and I was a little bit irritated, and I kind of brushed him off. So a couple of days later, we got a coffee shop, Hortons. I know we go to a bunch of us go to the coffee shop, and I'm in the coffee shop, and somebody says, "Did you hear that Peter Basco committed suicide?" And I said, "Are you serious?" "Oh yeah, he killed himself the other night." And then I felt really responsible. I thought, well, here he was depressed because somebody stole his tools, and I should have spent some time with him. And I felt really, really bad. I've known him for a long time, and I thought, well, that was pretty. I should have spent some time and maybe picked him up a little bit, and I kind of felt maybe it was my fault. And this went on, and a couple of days later they said, well, it turns out that no, he didn't commit suicide. He had a heart attack. And the story, this all through the week it went, and it was winter time. There was a little bit of snow on the ground, early winter, and I drove past this place. There was no tracks. It looked like, and I mean, there's always tracks because he's got a garage and he's always in business, but there's not a track in the yard. It was just like the place was abandoned. And I got towards, my brother worked with social services and health, and I got a hold of my brother. I asked people, I said, well, where's the body? When's the funeral? Nobody seemed to know it was a funeral, and then I started something was strange about all this. But I was still pretty bothered. I got my brother called the hospital. No, he wasn't in the morgue. So Saturday came around, and I took my brother, so let's go over to Peter's place and see what the heck's going on. So we walk over there, figure, well, if he's dead, he doesn't mind if I walk into his trailer, So I opened the door, and I said to my brother, what's really strange, the door is locked from the inside on the trailer. If there's nobody in the trailer, it'd be locked from outside. I just give the handle a good jerk, and I rip the door open. And then I go stomping into my boots, my brother behind me, or skidoo suits on, get halfway down the hallway, and here's Peter, all scruffy, and what the hell are you doing in here? And I said, well, you're supposed to be dead. Like, I was totally shocked and embarrassed. I basically just broke into his house. And so he got in there, and he kind of gave me hell, and he was grumpy, and obviously he'd been sitting in his house depressed. And he was just sitting there kind of stewing his own sauce. And I sat down, and he always comes to the coffee shop. And, he was a real coffee shop guy, and he drank a bunch of coffee, but he hadn't been there for this whole week. And I said, I'll tell you what, Peter, you just sit put. I'm going to go to the coffee shop, and I'm going to get a couple of coffees, and I'll bring them back. And he said, okay. So then I went and got the coffees, and I came back and sat down, and we started having a coffee, and he calmed down. He wasn't mad at me for breaking into his house, which I still think he should have been a lot mad. It was really wild if somebody did. Anyway, I guess he was happy somebody cared enough to come over, and we had a coffee. He said, okay. So now I'm really pissed off at all these guys that started this rumor he'd committed suicide, because I've been, emotionally kind of stressed out all week because I felt I played a part in his death there, and here he wasn't dead. This was all a rumor. Somebody'd made this story up, and everybody was feeling, and feeling bad about it. Nobody exactly knew who started the story. So I asked Peter, says, how long are you going to be dead? And he said, well, this was on a Saturday. He says, well, I'm going to go to the coffee shop on Tuesday. I said, do you mind if I go out and get a bunch of crime, that ribbon for a crime scene and put it around the vehicles here and make it look like a crime scene? And he says, you go ahead and do whatever you want. He said, so off I went, and we got in the vehicle. We went around town. I thought maybe I could find, it's probably illegal, but I thought I'd find, like, sometime you'll find a house that burnt, and the police will put that crime scene ribbon up so you can't cross the ribbon. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe I'd find one of these burnt houses and borrow some ribbon tape. It looks the same from the road. It's yellow. And I tied yellow tape from the stairs of the house to the vehicle doors, around the vehicles, across the front of the shop. I had a ribbon everywhere. So then after I got this done, I go back to the coffee shop. So the guys are all having coffee, and I said, you guys were saying that Peter committed suicide? And then he said he had a heart attack. I said, he didn't commit suicide. He didn't have a heart attack. The police just came to see me. He was murdered. And they're looking, and the police are looking for whoever started this whole story to interview him, because he's dead, and they figured that whoever started the story about him committing suicide knows more about the crime. And I kept a straight face, and I got up and I left, eh? Well, those guys, they said there was a line of traffic for the next 2 days driving past this place with people just looking out the window, not going in the yard, looking at all this ribbon. They got those guys at the coffee shop twisted right out of shape. Of course, Monday or Tuesday, he showed up at the coffee shop and he was alive. And the guys, there's still some guys that are mad at me about that. They're saying that I'm the one that started it. They try to turn it back on me. I said, don't even try. You guys started this joke, and I finally got you all back. But there's an example of, starting a rumor or starting a story and have it almost become real and get everybody twisted up. And we've done that, on the Winter Road. Every trip there's somebody starts. You got to be careful if somebody's BS, and you never know for sure. What's real and what's not when the guys start rumors, because they do that to entertain themselves. And they do that.
Yeah.
Goodness grief. Oh, the sewer truck's coming here.
Well,
it's the sewer. We're on a pump out system, and the sewer truck comes. He gives these dogs cookies, eh? So when they see him coming, they go nuts. They want to get out there.
Yeah. Alex, do you ever take your dog on the road with you?
No, it's there's enough problems and enough things to look after, and rules and regulations and paperwork and people, and as much I know, I've seen some of the guys bring their dogs, but for me it's just I've got 13. I've got 13 grandkids. I've got 11 children, and it's everything that needs looking after. So just one less thing to worry about. There's all the problems of dogs get sick and dogs get hungry, and you have to let them out of the truck to go and pee, and every once in a while somebody runs a dog over, or you run your own dog over, and that's just one less thing for me to stress out about.
Well, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And some of my trucker clients, they do take their pets with them, just for some company, and it kind of helps with to keep them in a better mood. But yet again, they're in the lower 48 here, and they're not dealing with all of the extreme conditions that you are.
I've seen people here, the pets. I have a sandwich that lives under the passenger seat, and it comes out at about 3:30 in the morning, same time as the flying saucers, and discusses politics with me. It's a left-wing sandwich, so that makes for some excitement every once in a while.
So there you go. Absolutely, yes. So I know when you think about how you drive on the ice road, it's still full and you don't completely relax. Can you tell me how do you deal with that long-term level of stress and possibly fear?
Well, it's like most truck driving. Most of it is monotony. So I guess monotony is stressful in itself, because you have to, the biggest thing with driving truck is you have to be paying attention all the time. It's almost like the military. You spend all these hours of monotony and then maybe a couple of seconds of all sorts of fear. And the idea is to be paying attention, because when things go wrong, it's always because we aren't paying attention. And, whether you strike an animal or, go through a snowbank, or, not watching another truck coming towards you and loses control. And if a person is watching, could avoid an accident. And so I guess the number one stress would be the monotony of it all. And then we end up with other stress, like we're, on the Dalton Highway, where you're driving for, to Prudhoe Bay on the North Slope, and we're driving for 3 and 4 hours, and we never see the road. You can't see anything. You don't see anything for 4 hours. All you see is two delineators, a delineator on either side of the road, like these two sticks with reflectors on them. You can't see the truck in front of you. Maybe if he's got his backup lights on, you might see a little bit of light if you get close enough to him. And, of course, when you do meet an oncoming truck, you'll see the ball of light coming, but you can't see the road surface. All you can do is divide the delineators with your peripheral vision and keep the truck in the middle of the road. And when you meet another truck, you're just trying to move over far enough to give them enough room to get by without going over the shoulder of the road because you don't know where the shoulder is because you can't see it. I mean, then, you know, it's blowing snow and it's white out and it's just literally you don't see anything for, you know, 1 to 2 to 3 hours sometime, depending where you are and what kind of a storm it is, and you keep on going. In that case, on that particular road. So that's really stressful. You know, up on the Dempster Highway, the same thing. We get into that Hurricane Alley and they don't have proper delineation. They only got a stick here and a stick there, so you don't even have the blasted delineators. The road disappears. You're behind a truck, and especially if it's kind of, you know, still semi-daylight and you can't see lights from the back of the truck, and you got to keep the power on because you back off, and because of the blowing snow, it's starting to pack on the road. The truck stops. You're not going to start again, so you kind of keep it rolling. And the road disappears. You're just trying to hold the steering wheel straight, and you know, it might be gone for 10 seconds. It might be gone for 20 seconds. It feels like an hour, and you're holding the steering wheel straight, and you're just waiting for the truck to drop off the road, and then, you know, then the gust of wind is gone, and there's the road again, and you get yourself straightened out, and hopefully you're not halfway through a curve, and, you know, so that's really stressful. And you get long-term, you know, that's sort of a thing that'll last for minutes or an hour, depending what kind of storm you're going through.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
you know, now there are situations you'll get on an ice road where you don't have that kind of traffic, and it's not engineered, and it's not, you know, all these disciplines aren't applied to it as far as rules and laws, and somebody's looking after it, and it's a one-shot deal, and you're going across a lake to haul freight to somebody that's going to, you know, usually pay you more money, and, you know, they haven't tested the ice that well. Well, then now you're in another situation where the whole, you know, might be a nice day and you could see real good, but you don't know what you're driving on, you know. So then that's another, you know, you get to do lots of praying and you know, maybe leave the door open, and you're dressed in your skidoo suit and ready to vacate the premises, and you're worried about going through the ice, because if you do go through the ice, it's not just your life, and all of a sudden you're going to be dealing with, you know, pollution control and the government and the police and everybody else, because you just dropped a whole bunch of stuff into the lake. It might be better to drown with the truck. It might be better to drown with the truck than face all the ramifications of the environmental disaster of going through the ice.
And can I ask you about, like, work-life balance? Because it's my understanding that when you're on the ice road, you're pretty much working nonstop for, is it a couple of months or so?
Yeah, I don't have a very good balance. I basically don't go on holidays, but well, what I tell people is I retired when I was 28 years old, and I didn't realize I was retired until I was 40, and this is it. And I'm 60 now. I do a whole bunch of different jobs. So change is as good as the rest. I look for treasure. I mean, I've got a gold claim in British Columbia about, 1,200 miles away from here. I go hang around with the gold miners. I'm trying to figure out how to go gold mining without spending a whole bunch of money. I go down there for, you know, a week or so at a time and do some work on an old cabin and you know, there's a lady that lets me stay at her place. So I do some work for her in lieu of that. And if I ever go gold mining, I'll have a place to hang my hat and work from, a place called Likely. I've got a diamond claim on the lake here where we're hoping to drill, and we got the tangle with Mackenzie Valley Environmental Review Board, and it all ended up in court with the YK Yellowknife Dene First Nations. I don't know if we're going to do anything with that, but we're trying to get a permit to diamond drill to see if there's kimberlite there. I've got 150 vehicles in my yard. I collect things. I fix and sell the odd car. I got a bunch of old cars, so I'll work on them. I've got a decent shop, so I'll fix some stuff for resale, fix my own equipment. Most of the stuff I drive or use, I buy older stuff that's broken, and I'll fix it and drive it. So, you know, I'll work on my truck. You know, in the summertime, I make topsoil, and I haul topsoil. I do some excavation and haul some gravel. Do some equipment work around construction sites. So I'm always doing something. I'm either doing that or sleeping, one or the other.
And it sounds like a lot of that is like a hobby for you as well, as far as, you know.
Well, I mean, life is a hobby. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, life is a hobby or a joke, or, I mean, what, you know, you got, I mean, just, you got to go look in the mirror, you get somebody look behind your neck there, you got a best before date on you, and you're probably getting pretty close to it already. So it's like, what's the whole goal? I mean, you know when you're going to die. The government tells us you got about 26,000 days, 76 years. And by the time you're 7,000 days old, 20 years old, you only got 19,000 days left. And if you live to be 100, that's only 36,500. So you only got 29,000 days to be 100 from when you're 20. So, like, what, you know, why are we here? What are we doing? You know, we chase our tails and be good little gerbils, squeak, 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 you know. The wheel goes round and round, and when you turn 60 years old, you're going to have an erection that's, you know, 2 feet across and 10 feet high, and you're going to have nothing but fun, 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 fun. And then you turn 60, and you go to take a pee, and you can't find it, and you turn around, and you go, but here come the rest of the little gerbils. Fun, 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 we're retiring. Like, what the heck? What's it, you know, what are we doing it all for? I mean, I guess that's the big question, and I guess driving and spending a lot of time by yourself, quite often you can ask that question, you know, like what are we chasing, you know, and so in a way, you know, every day is a test one way or the other, whether you're at home or you're working, or, you know, so time is short. So I always kind of feel driven, I guess I can say I feel driven by my unfulfillment, feelings of being unfulfilled. So it's, you know, and then of course when you come home, and I mean, that's a situation for a truck driver, you know, people in the military, and then, you know, you come home and your family's really happy to see you for a day or two, and maybe a week, and then all of a sudden it's like you're in the way, because they did fine, you know, I leave, when I leave, I come back, you know, to me in my head nothing changed, but they did fine without me. And they've the pecking order has changed, and when I show up after being gone especially for 2 months, then I'm like the big bad fly in the ointment. Like, we all did fine without you here, and now you're going to come and you think you're the boss, or you think you're going to tell us what to do, or you don't like what we're doing, or you think we can do things better. Well, we did fine without you, so you end up with this you know, problem. I mean, that was something I learned. You know, everything changes. And when we leave something and come back, in our minds it doesn't change, but it continues to change and we're not there. And an example of that was I was in flying, and I met an Indian from India, from the Punjab, and he said that his family immigrated from the Punjab, the area of Delhi in India, to Britain, and they lived in Britain for 35 years. And he said that his dad, they wore the clothes, they ate the food, and they spoke the language. Like, they try to protect their culture. So 35 years later, sometime in, you know, 1980s, his dad decided to take the family, and they're going to go back to India. And when they come back to India, people said, "How quaint! You know, you have a different accent." He said, "We used to speak like that, but we don't speak. The language has changed a little bit. And how quaint! You dress so quaintly. We used to dress like that. We don't dress like that. Oh, that kind of food. Yeah, the old people eat that kind of food, but we eat a different kind of food now. The food has changed." So when you leave a culture, you know, like that for 30 years, you come back, you froze the culture in your mind, or you froze the culture, but you come back, the culture has changed. Well, it's the same thing when we leave our homes and we come back to our family. We're gone for 2 months. Well, the home life has changed. The way the family operates has changed. And if we leave it for a year or 2 years, it was just more so. And they're happy to see us. They come home, but that you end up with all this friction after, you know, that initial happiness is wore off, and you're trying to reestablish your pecking order. So that's, you know, that's almost as stressful. Coming home is, in some ways, almost as stressful as going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, Alex, so many of the clients that I have, you know, they talk about those exact same problems. So I'm glad that you're able to discuss, you know, how you deal with this and the challenges out there. I think that's
well, I mean, it took me, I mean, all these things are, I mean, like, I'm 60 years old, so I mean, I'm only, you know, some of these things I'm only realizing now that, you know, I only realized that probably in the last couple of years. It was like a revelation to me, like a light bulb came on, and I thought, this is what the problem is. They're doing fine without me. And so now I come back.
Right.
It took that time for me to come to this realization. And a lot of people, and I was kind of shocked, that some people don't realize that's what the problem is, or aren't able to verbalize it, or don't understand it.
Certainly, yeah. And I'm curious, are you able to call home very often?
Well, I can call home. Yeah. Well, as far as if I'm working on a Yellowknife, I'm home depending on the weather, I'm home, every 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
But I am home, but I'm not really home, because I come in and I'm tired. And when I come in, because we only have 2 months, and I buy that truck to run for 2 months, I can't afford to stop. I got 2 months to pay for that truck to make it work for the whole year. So, I'm tired. By the time I've done everything, I get home, I'm into bed, I'm tired, and I, probably sleep the minimum of hours I do to make my logbook. I'm already scheduled to leave, because there's so many trucks. Each truck, you schedule your truck. They'll say, okay, when do you want to leave? So you call in and say, I want to leave at 4:30 in the morning, because that, basically I'll do whatever the minimum my logbook requires. So I'll stumble out of bed, and my wife will have a lunch, and I'm gone. And so you're not really home. You're just home to sleep, because it's better to stretch out and get some food from home than, I could have slept in the truck and turned around and ate at Lockhart, 8 hours out, but it's nice to come home. And as far as, when we're gone for 2 months, usually a person can call, again, once a week maybe. Depends how bad you want to call, because some places it's hard to call from.
Sure, I would imagine so.
We have cell phones, so if you're in it's always easy to call your cell phone. It's expensive, with the roaming and all that. So you can, if you're in place, you get cell phone coverage easy. If you pick up the phone and phone home. But other places where you got to find a phone and things like that, then usually, unless there's an emergency or something, or you figure there's a problem, you don't bother calling till you're back in the bigger place where they got cell towers. And of course, you call if they leave a message, and then, sometime, usually try to call us out in case there's any problems, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's always a little bit, that's the other thing. The trouble is you're gone and you call, and there is always a problem, or quite often there's a problem. And it seems like, I guess from the kind of depressing part of it is, it's kind of like the family doesn't know what you do. Like my family doesn't know what I do. Even when I'm in town, I'm out there, I'm a one-man operation, and I do a lot of different things. Like I told my wife, if I get killed on the job, if I'm running my loader out there, according to workman's compensation and all that, you're supposed to phone home somebody's supposed to know what you're doing every 2 hours. So if you're working by yourself, you're supposed to phone somebody every 2 hours. It says, if I get killed underneath that loader or that soil shredder or working on my truck, you're going to better tell workman's compensation I called you within the last 2 hours, because they're going to try to hold somebody liable because I'm dead, if I run myself over. So the family really doesn't. I guess that's one of the sadder things for me, is that the family doesn't know. A lot of times it's okay. I'm just sitting there. I'm not doing too much, not a big effort. But, a lot of times it's a strain. Your back's killing you, and your back's killing you all friggin' day. And, you're twisting around in the seat back and forth just trying to keep it so it's comfortable. Sometime I eat the wrong things, and, my stomach's bothering me, and I feel like going to the bathroom, and I got to jump out of the truck and in the snowbank. There's no damn toilets out there for 8 hours. So, what do? You got the runs. You're eating in the camp, you're eating some food there. Maybe, I don't know, something's wrong, and you get out and you can't crap, and you get back in the truck, and you're uncomfortable, and you don't have a decent place to go to the bathroom and relax. The guy gets older, maybe that, So there's, and the family doesn't know that you put yourself through this stuff, and you come home, and, it's just the pay, and I send, the money goes home and goes account. Most of the time I let my wife handle all that. I don't even know what the balance is. So I don't think we get the credit from our families for what we do. And that's a sad, I find that kind of a sad thing. You know, and the
And
kids don't appreciate. You know, I've got 11 kids, and I mean, the oldest is 42, and lots of them have done good, but lots of them are doing stupid. You know, some of them are doing stupid things, and they don't. You know, they don't. Well, give me a hand. Well, they don't want to give you a hand. Well, I've got plans. You got to, you know, like, you know, you got the 17-year-old or 15-year-old. So I've got plans. You got to let me know in advance. Like, I figure, like, what the heck? I got to let them know. Nobody lets me know anything in advance. If there's a problem, I got to fix it. You know, so it's sort of like you're in charge. You pay the bill. You're supposed to pay the bills, but really, you're still got to kiss everybody's ass. You know, and then you come home and they all. It's like they want more from you. You know, well, you got to act this way. You've got to be more polite. You've got to be, you got to do this and you got to do that. And you're saying, like, you know, maybe I'd like to be kind of waited on a little bit when I come home. I mean, I put in a tough week or I put in a tough 2 months. Can you guys just treat me like royalty a little bit? Or I tell them, well, pretend. I come in the house. Okay, I want everybody to pretend you agree with me. Just pretend. Do everything the way I want. As soon as I walk out the door, blow the place up. But when I come home, pretend that I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just make me feel. Just make me feel special when I'm in the house. I'm only asking you, and I'm only going to be kicking around the house for a couple hours. Otherwise, I'll be sleeping anyway. You just pretend, you know. But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that I think that so many of the drivers that's going to hear this, they're going to appreciate everything that you said, just simply about how, you know, families not appreciating the driver, not understanding what he actually does. Because I hear this on a regular basis from my clients, and it's just so tough.
You know, but on the other hand, like, I mean, you know, I appreciate my wife still being there after 43 years
Sure.
or 42 years. I mean, can't remember. I mean, she's still there, and you know, she's definitely not perfect, and you know, we've gone through everything in our marriage that. I'm sure that there's not very many marriages that there's a divorce in, that the same thing that caused the divorce didn't happen 3 times in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we've gone through all those tests, and you know, some of the time I was the bad guy, and some of the time my wife was the bad guy, and our marriage is tested. You know, it's still tested. You know, if we can keep fighting for another 20 years, we'll be done, I guess. Yeah.
There you go.
It's kind of funny. I came home last night, 2:00 in the morning, and I hit a deer. I got no grill in my pickup. Transmission leaked for the last 300 miles. You know, anyway, got home one piece. It didn't totally blow up, and my wife's got a cold. Oh, don't kiss me, you'll get sick. And I got up this morning, and she'd gone to work, and she left a note, and I thought it was kind of nice. It said, I am happy to see you. I'm happy to see that, you know, you came home. I'm happy that you're here. You know, and I thought, yeah, I didn't, until I seen the note, I didn't notice that she really didn't explain to me that she was happy that I was home after I've been gone for a couple of weeks. So It was nice to see her in a note. She said, you know, whatever. She said, I made breakfast or whatever, but I'm happy that you're home. And I thought, well, you know, and I don't know, maybe it'd be nice if our wives or our significant other would just express that, you know, I'm happy that, you know, thanks for sending the check home, and thanks for coming home, and, you know, I don't know, just, it'd be nice to get a little more appreciation, but I appreciate the little bit of appreciation I do get, you know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. All right, so Alex, we'll let you go in just a second, and I highly appreciate this interview today. It's been fantastic talking with you, and I do want to give you a message from one of the drivers that I talked to recently, and he said that he wanted to tell you that he really appreciates the fact that you show your faith on ice road truckers and that you talk about your faith. He said that's just really cool.
Well, I mean, I guess I never really thought that I would end up being a media star or be on television, but I always thought that when I saw usually the black guys in the NFL playing football, when they scored a touchdown, and they'd say a little prayer at the end of the field, and I thought, if I ever got in TV, I want to do the same thing. So that basically I've got the chance to do it, and really, I guess the driver, well, thank God for that, and the other thing is thank History Channel, because it's, it's them and the production company's prerogative to cut that, and they didn't, they cut some of it, but I think more people should be telling History Channel that, because I get a lot of that, and I don't think the media realizes how many people appreciate it and how it gives people a boost. And drivers or anybody else that likes that should be going on, sending a letter or phoning or whatever you do, get on the internet and tell History Channel thank you, and we'd like to see, it's nice to see that. And maybe they would allow a little more of it on television. Now, I'd like to tell you a little story. This came to me this last winter. The world, there's 7 billion people, and that's a book with 7 billion pages. And each one of us is responsible for one or more pages of that book. And if we make our page a better page, we make the book a better book. And even though we are so insignificant as one person, considering there's 7 billion of us, we're still significant enough that we change the world every day. And we can change it. We can make it a better page, a better book, or we can make it a worse page. And sometimes we're responsible for more than one page. And if we have the opportunity to help somebody and that'll improve their page of the book, give them a better day, lift them up, and you'll make that book that much better, that much quicker.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's very well put. So thanks again, Alex. I really appreciate talking with you. And, don't hesitate to give me a call if things get a little tough. Infinite free trucker therapy for you, okay, Alex?
You don't know what you're asking for. Anyway, God bless you all, and Merry Christmas. And if you get a chance to help anybody, like obviously you do, then do it. It'll just make it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if everybody's broke. If everybody keeps working together, it doesn't matter. The world's working fine. We get too caught up in geopolitics, not caught up enough in just helping each other get ahead. Just get by and get ahead.
I certainly agree. Thank you so much, Alex. It was great talking.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much,
All
Buck.
right. Merry Christmas. All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye.